So in the last lab, we saw how we protected a Windows login with Duo MFA. So this task is done for us. Now let's test some different custom policies and see what changes are applied when we apply it to the application which we have protected, which is Microsoft Windows in our case. And then later on, we'll see how to change the software values which we had selected during the Duo installer application right in the start. And we can see, like for example, as we selected the auto push as the default method for Duo MFA, so we will go ahead and modify it in the task 3 and see how we can modify those in the registry editor. Okay, so firstly let's continue with the lab where we left off. Let's go to the applications. Yep, so this is the application which we protected as per the last lab. So let's go into the policies and do some changes in the custom policy. You can see that it is already specifying that the policy is applied to Microsoft RDP and all these things are enabled. So most of them have no restrictions. So let's do it one by one. I'll click on edit. Now let's start with the authentication policy first. So yes, I've shortlisted few of these in the few of the conditions in these policies so that it is helpful to understand and have a actual experience how this settings when we tweak it how it would work exactly. So we'll not be looking at each and every of them, but some of them which are more relevant and which are possible to perform it in this lab demo. So for the authentication policy, I will, for the time being, I will use this option of bypass 2FA, wherein the two-factor authentication will be bypassed. First, let's test whether the enforce one is working correctly. It's already applied to Microsoft RDP. So let's go. Before proceeding, let me show you the reports. Due to some reason, the reports were not visible last time we checked it because of the time sync. But now, after some time, you can see like whatever approvals we have approved the MFA from our mobile app in the last demo. You can see that specific logs are visible in the report section. The timestamp as per the time zone, what was the result, the username, the application. These are the hyperlinks. You can directly jump on to that specific application. When I go to Microsoft RDP, it directly takes me to this Microsoft RDP. And when you now let's check this into reports when we do it, as in when we do the tweaks in the policy. So it is 11:51 now. So let's try checking if everything is working correctly here. Let me close this menu. Okay, so I'll keep it in this fashion so it is easy for you guys. Yep, so the mobile is also mirrored. Okay, so let's lock this Windows machine and go ahead and unlock this. I'll enter the first factor, which is the password. Oh, sorry. So as you can see, I've got a push notification for Microsoft RDP, my name and the timestamp. I'll quickly approve, and yes, we can see that everything is working as expected. So if you refresh this specific page, you can see that the specific log, it'll be visible in a minute or so. Until that, let's go and quickly change the first part of the policy for the test purpose, that is bypassing the two-factor authentication. Now this option might be useful wherein you are into the test phase or the pilot phase of rollout of Duo MFA. So you can use this if any due to some reasons the MFA is not working or the users are not getting the notifications on their phone. So for timing you can just bypass this so that there will be no hassle to the users and they'll get access for the time being, and later on you can go into the enforce mode. This is a step-by-step deployment process. So I have already, you can see the policy has been saved successfully. So let's quickly go to our VM, and at the same time I'll just keep this app open so that you see we don't receive any request on Duo. So I enter my password, and as you can see it's logged in by bypassing the MFA solution because we created a policy. We modified the authentication policy to bypass Duo rather than enforce it. So quickly let's revert back and check if it works. Okay, put it in enforce, save the policy. Policy is saved successfully. Lock the machine. Yes, there is a request for MFA, approve, and then login successfully. So this authentication policy part into a custom policy, we saw that when we selected bypass, it bypassed the MFA or two-factor solution and directly went on with the password. But when we put it back into the enforced mode, it again requires you to accept or deny the request on the two-factor authentication. Deny access works in a similar fashion, but in this case, it will deny all the users. And the thing is, we have to be careful with this deny access option because it will impact each and every user who is enrolled. So we have to be very specific when doing this. So this is not recommended because for testing, you can just put it in bypass mode and that should work fine. Next, let's check the OS version. So we will directly jump onto this. I'm trying to cover each from a category. So for operating system, let's disable everything because I have only an iOS device. And now in this, there are two options. Either to encourage the users to update their mobile operating system, whether 2FA is running, that is the Duo application is running, and the second option is to block. This is kind of a more enforced mode, and encouraging users to update is just kind of warning which you give to the users. So that now we will check both the options so that uh, we know that what exactly happens in encouraging the users and what exactly happens when we actually block the users. Now we will select this option of end of life, that is if the iOS version of that iPhone or iOS device is 13.7 or below, then the user will be encouraged to upgrade. When a version becomes out of date or end of life, we encourage to update them immediately. You can select a time frame that either after 14 days the user, we can specify a kind of uh, time frame wherein the users would update within the meantime. But for now I know that my iOS is already on the end of life version of 12 dot something, so let's put it on immediately and not block any versions and save the policy. To check my iOS version, I can quickly go on to this specific endpoint thing, and you can see that the iOS version is 12.5.4, which is quite older, and the end of life is 13.7 as we checked into the application. So let's quickly go and check it. So what I will do is I will go into the Windows machine. I will lock it again. Here is the mobile mirroring, so you see when a notification comes. So got a request, approve. But can you see the message that it has warned me that administrator recommends updating the latest version of iOS due to the security concerns. So I can just press OK and go ahead. Still it has logged in even if it is a warning because we have not blocked anything. That is the reason. So if you check the policies which we have created for Windows, you can see that here. Let's directly jump on operating system. Yep, you can see that we had just encouraged the users to update that. It was just a warning message. So let's go and now block it. Obviously block will always override the encouragement because we are explicitly specifying to block. And let's say like deselect this options as well because we don't have any of these devices for our 2FA. We have only an iOS. So block versions, you can do it if it is not up to date or if it is end of life. For now we can test with end of life because anyways, if even if we do not up to date or less than the latest version, still it will block because the version is quite old. So let's do it end of life. Adjust selections so your users are encouraged to update before being blocked. So it is just notifying that you set the time limit for the users to encourage. So what we can do is we can just do this: never, I don't want to encourage anymore and I want to directly block the access. So I'll quickly save the policy. Changes are saved. Let's check what happens now. I will lock the machine. Entering my first factor, getting a prompt on Duo, approving, version restricted. iOS 12.4, 12.5.4, which is my current version on my iPhone, is not allowed by the administrator. Please update to the iOS 14.7.1 or above and try again because this OS is end of life. So it has recommended to upgrade to the latest available version. So you can see in this application of Duo Security in Windows as well, it is showing me the same thing. When I dismiss, so this is a kind of more enforced mode where you actually restrict the users from logging in if they don't have. So you can do this in a phased manner as we did. We can first encourage, we can set a time limit, and when we see that there are very few users left who have not yet done, we can just go ahead and put it in restricted mode. So when they know, they can quickly update it. So let's remove this specific thing and allow everything. Like put it back, roll back the configuration for this thing. I'll put it as block versions none and encourage users to update. So we have already seen this OS version. Now let me first show you the configuration. Next we will be looking at the authentication methods. Now for authorized networks, if I do it and if I am blocked the network access, I don't have another network or another ISP to switch on, so I cannot try this, but you guys can try if you have alternate ISPs in your case. So let's quickly jump on to this authentication methods. So now if you see, the users are allowed for authentication using all these methods: Duo push, the mobile passcode which is visible on the Duo application, SMS passcodes received on SMS, security key if you have a U2F key, like a UB key. Web authentication if you have security keys, which will be directly via the web, and if you want to enable the biometrics, that is the touch ID. So we'll look at this later, but first, before going forward, what we can do is we can quickly jump onto the machine, and let me first show you how to change the values, because in our case the thing is we already have set auto push, that is do auto push to as the default mechanism. So let me approve. Oh, might be some problem with the operating system. Yep. Now for changing the values, as you saw, like we get the duo push notifications by default. So to change those specific values, what we can do is either search for registry editor, which is this blue icon. All the network or security engineers are quite familiar with this, even the IT support guys. You can just quick do a reg edit on Windows run, requires privileged elevation. Now if you can see, you can tweak all these options, all these registry keys, and check. These are basically the options which we entered into the duo application and it got converted into the registry keys, and you can find it under H key local machine, under software, under duo security, and duo credential provisioning. So let's go on to this auto push. 1 means it is enabled and 0 means it is disabled. So we want to disable the auto push so that the user gets the flexibility of choosing whatever authentication option they want. So we have set this to 0. Now let's check by logging out again if we are able to. Yep. Let's quickly see if we are able to choose the option of any other method, any other option other than duo push. Duo push was taken by default by the application. Yep, you can see when I used to type the password, it directly used to send me a push notification, but now I have option of duo push and passcode. Call me is not available because since I'm using the trial version of duo for just for the lab thing. And in devices you can see like the if you have multiple devices enrolled for a single user, you can select any specific device of your preference. So for now I'll just do it a push again, but I had the option to manually select it. So this was the change which we saw in the registry edit. Let's jump on to the policy, why we did it. Scroll down to the authentication methods. Now let's try with only mobile passcode if it is possible. So what I'll do will be just checking duo push, mobile passcode, and touch ID, since those are more available options in case of our lab. So let's disable everything and just keep the mobile passcodes. Save the policy. Policy is saved successfully. Let's open the lab again. It's not necessary to keep the application of Duo open, but since it's already open on my mobile, I've kept it on the same application. Anyways, you get a push notification. Can you see the send me a push option is already disabled, and it is asking me for a mobile passcode with a small symbol of the 3 digits, which is actually my Duo protected application. So look for this duo protected thing on the application. I'll enter this specific code. Now this specific code will not be visible on the screen sharing since it is restricted by the application due to security reasons. So I just entered the thing and yes, it's working. It allowed me to log in. Now let us check the reports if they are visible. Yes. If you see the version restricted, the access was denied. You can see a denied log. You even get the statistics that what time and how frequently you are using any specific application, the access granted, the denied access, how long since what time you are using it or what time you were actually doing it. So what we can do is quickly go to the policies again and revert back that policy thing, the passcode thing, which was only allowed method. So what we can do is just select duo push and save the policy. Let me mirror the screen quickly. Okay, so let's jump on to this Windows machine. Unlock it. So now you can see that I'll enter the password. Let me open up my phone. When I enter this password, the only option is just send me a push and I get a push notification, and yes, it's done. The last thing which we'll be trying with this custom policy is the biometrics thing, wherein we will require the user to have the touch ID or the biometrics enabled on their device. So let's quickly revert these settings and let's select everything and save it. And when we go on to edit, let me go into this mobile device biometrics, and if you see, Apple Touch ID, Face ID, and Android fingerprint can be required as an additional verification along with duo push login request. So by default, it is don't require. I want the application to require. Now it will specify that on what iOS versions it is supported and what duo mobile application it is supported. And the important thing is if the application of duo is or the iOS version is older than this mentioned version, the default action will be block. So require this. I quickly reload it. Let me jump on to this specific reports. Okay, let's see if it works. Keep the mobile handy. I'm entering my first factor. I'm getting an option to send a push. Now you see the changes. You can see a fingerprint symbol on the approve button. When I am approving it, it is asking for my touch ID to verify my identity. Now when I put my finger on the button, it checked if the touch ID is registered or if the fingerprint is registered. Yes, since it was my own mobile, my touch ID was registered, my fingerprint was registered to use touch ID, and that's the reason it asked me. So if my fingerprint is not registered and if I keep on trying, it will not allow me the access unless and until my biometrics validation is successful. So this was all about the custom policies, what all changes we can do. Now this was all about granted. Let's see a scenario if you deny, if in actual scenario, if any your credentials are stolen and someone uses it and you just get a notification on your door, the attacker is not aware that a multi-factor authentication solution is enforced or is running. So, and if the duo push is allowed by default, because let's quickly change those settings later on, but for now we will just send a duo push, bring in my mobile. Now there are two options when I deny. If I click on deny, as we discussed in last part, either it seems fraudulent, is shown by a red mark, and it was a mistake. So I'll do this. It seems fraudulent, and this login request is reported as fraudulent to the admin. In this case, it will be myself, because I am the admin of this account and I am the only user who is accessing this application. So I'll show that email later on, what is the email which we get. So as of now, dismiss it. And if you see, and if you refresh the authentication logs, you can see user has been marked as fraud. You see, and the deny access count, which was 1 earlier, has changed to 2. We have granted access to this application 6 times between 12 to 12:15 a.m. on September 6th, which is today, and we have denied the access twice. One was denied because of the user was marked as fraud, because we ourselves marked it as fraud just for testing. So in case this thing happens in real time situation, this is how you can just deny the specific authentication request. And one was denied due to the version restrictions, which I had put it during the policy configuration. So let's see what happens when you're actually doing it, if it was by mistake. So get a push notification. Let's put it as it was a mistake, and the login request is also denied because you didn't intend to log into that application and it happened by mistake. And after entering your password, you recall that you don't want to access this application anymore, and so you marked it as it was a mistake from your side. So the two-factor denied it, specifying it as a user mistake. So this is how it works. We saw a different set of custom policies, how we can configure it. Now let's quickly jump on to the licensing section, wherein we can see what are the licenses consumed. We can go to the dashboard. You can see it's a demo account. That's the reason I'm given just 10 licenses, which are more than sufficient for a test purpose, and one license has been consumed with this specific user, which is myself. And I still have 9 more licenses which I can go ahead and use. Yep, 9 licenses are remaining, and if you see, there is a summary everywhere, the deployment progress. Total user is 1. Number of applications, it is 2, because I have protected another application which we will be having a demo as well in the later sessions. And 1 device per user, because I have just enrolled 1 device, my iOS device. And this week's top method was duo push. So if you regularly use duo push, it will show it as duo push, and it again has a hyperlink specifying the success rate. Now this could be 100%, if every time we access the application or and we accepted approved the request, but for the demonstration we had to deny the request for checking the options. So the rate is 87.5. The top method used is duo push, and the application which is mostly used is Microsoft RDP. We get a nice graph wherein you see the denied authentication and the approved or granted access authentication requests. You can see as we use mobile passcode twice, and the beauty is this is calculated on basis of all the users, all the application, all the authentication methods. Now say there are, it is showing two applications for RDP since I was testing it earlier before today for just a test purpose. That's the reason it is showing two applications, and this is the one which we tested it now in this lab demo. And you can see duo push is the mostly used, and there is a small kind of graph you can see on all the passcodes, which is mostly the duo mobile passcode. So this is all about the reporting. If you go on the denied authentication from this left pane of menu, you can see the failure rate, how the authentication was denied, whether it was purposely denied. We denied it twice purposely, one to check it was a mistake and one to show that it was actually a fraudulent. Blocked were two, twice. The deployment progress, again, which was available in the dashboard itself. We don't have any single sign on, so we can't see anything in the single sign on log. But if you have any SSO integrated, you can see these logs here. It's calculating the policy impact. If you see the unique users blocked, the graph is given on the basis of time, during which time frame it was done. The version restricted, because there might be multiple reasons for the blocking of the users. The operating system is not in place, the full disk encryption is not enabled on the Android device, whatever it could be. For in our case it was just version restricted. And yes, that's it. This is all about the reporting tab. We checked on the, we will discuss in the later stage about the users and groups. For now, we just have one user for the testing purpose. So we have already seen how we can add a user, different alias. We will be having an actual demonstration with during the next application demo, that how we actually can use those 8 alias, different alias of one specific user. If the username is different everywhere, the method of specifying it is different everywhere, how we can do it. So we have tested this thing, the custom policies to the application which we protected, which was Microsoft RDP. And we also saw how we can change the values using regedit, using for the application which we installed, the installer during the earlier stage. So yeah, this is all about the custom policies, global policies, and all about protecting an application. Next session we will discuss more on the different use cases of Duo, and we will see two more use cases wherein we protect Cisco Identity Services Engines admin portal with Duo, kind of similar configuration on the Duo cloud, but we have an additional component of Duo authentication proxy in the next session. So till then, bye and have a good day.